Okay, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I recognize the time. It is right at 5 o'clock, so we will get started. So thank you again for your time. For those of you that maybe are just jumping in, just still logging in, I can see there is a chat feature. So in the bottom right, if you click on the purple button, that will open up the chat. You may hear that ding a few times throughout the night. Just know that that is available for you there. And otherwise, hopefully you can see me, you can hear me, and we will get our webinar started. So tonight we are going to be talking about the Master of Arts in Education Studies here at Western University. We are going to be focusing primarily on two streams of study that we have open that we are still accepting applications for, and that will be Applied Linguistics and Curriculum Studies. So hopefully that is what you are here for. If you're for one of our other streams, some of this information will be relatable, so absolutely stick around. And we will mention too that we have the Master of Professional Education program, which is a separate program. You may hear me refer to that a few different times tonight just as a comparison. So if you are still comparing the two different streams, this will be a great opportunity for you too. So first, who am I? My name is Amber Patrick. I am the recruitment coordinator here at the Faculty of Education, and I will be doing the first portion of this presentation, which should usually take about 20-25 minutes. And then the rest of the time we really have open for questions. And we are lucky to have Jennifer here. She's the graduate office manager, and she will be both in the chat and taking questions at the end too if there's any that I cannot figure out myself. So you are welcome to use the chat feature throughout the presentation, or if you'd like to hold that till the end, that is completely fine as well. Perfect, there we go. Thanks, Jen. We can see you here too. And just a reminder that we will be recording this presentation. So if you're having any technical issues, I've noticed a few people had to log out and back in again. That typically does work. So if you do find yourself having connection issues, please feel free to try that. Otherwise, it will be recorded and sent out within 48 hours. So don't panic. You will also have full access to these slides, and we've included important links on the slides that you can refer to afterwards. Okay, so what we are going to cover, we're going to talk a little bit about the program itself and how it's structured, the admission requirements, and the application process, as that is likely where a lot of you are sitting right now. Maybe you've done your research, but just working through that application, and talk about financing the degree. And then, as I said, we've allotted a lot of time for questions at the end, so please feel free to use that opportunity. So the program overview. The Master of Arts, as I mentioned, there are 5 fields of study, but we will be focusing on 2 tonight that are still open and accepting applications. And those are Applied Linguistics and Curriculum Studies. Now, when we talk about this program, a few things to talk about are the features that it offers. So this is primarily a research-intensive, fully on-site program. Now, I know with the pandemic, there may be a few questions. We can kind of address those at the end, but really this is designed to be an on-site program. If you are looking for our online program, that is our Masters of Professional Education, and we do have a recording from that information session last month that is available on our website, or we can happily email that out. But tonight, focusing on our research-intensive on-site program. It is primarily a 2-year program, so the program can take anywhere from 16 to 24 months, which we will talk about when we get into the timeline. But generally speaking, this is a 2-year on-site program. There are 2 routes for these streams, which is either thesis-based or master's research project-based. So the timeline will differ a little bit between those. Yes, definitely, Michelle, we can send that to you after. So the timeline will differ between those 2 different programs, and we'll show you what that looks like, but just know that there are 2 routes within our Master of Arts program. Up to 3 courses are taken per term, and there are 2 terms for this program. As mentioned, it is full-time, so really it is not highly recommended that you would be working full-time with this program, because the idea is that you are allocating enough time for your research and for your studies. So it would really be dependent on time management, but we tell students to prepare. You are a full-time student in this program. Okay, now talking a little bit about the common questions we receive. So as I mentioned, anywhere from 16 months if you're looking into that major research project to 2 years. Thesis route, definitely going to be hitting that 2 years. This program has an intake every September. So we do not have a winter intake. This doesn't start in January. It always begins in September. As mentioned, this is an on-site program that is research intensive. So you'll be working with a supervisor, conducting that research. It is not professionally focused. That would be our MPED program. And again, not capstone focused, but instead of a capstone, you are doing that thesis or master's research project, and limited availability for full-time employment. Now here's a visual of that timeline I was referring to. So if you are thinking of going the thesis route, that is in the first part, you will be looking at taking 3 courses in the fall and 3 courses in the winter, both 12-week periods, and then working towards your thesis. So the second year is primarily going to be made up of your thesis. For the master's research project, it looks a little bit different because you do have 2 courses in the summer of your first year, and the second year is focused on that research project. So that's why it could differ in length, anywhere from 16 to 24 months, depending on how much time is committed to completing that master's research project. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the application process. So right here, I've included the basic academic requirements that we are looking for. So the admissions committee will be seeking applicants that have a 4-year degree, which we say is 20 full credits at Western, or the equivalent depending on the institution you graduated from. And it does need to be an accredited university, of course. They are looking for a minimum B standing, which is a 70% on our grading scale, in the final 2 years of study. So they're going to be focusing in on those final 2 years. Now, these are the general requirements that we state. I've also included a link to the website there, so I would highly recommend that you refer to our website because there are also some recommendations depending on the stream that you're looking at applying into. As well, there are some exceptions. So if you're here tonight and potentially you have a 3-year degree or your GPA is slightly different, etc., please do refer to the website because we have a section on notes and exceptions, and they are really looked at on a case-by-case basis, but generally speaking, this is what the committee is looking for in the applicants. Now this next slide here highlights the different areas that are considered by the admissions committee. So it's important to note that these are not listed in any particular order, nor are they weighted in a particular way. So there's no exact formula that the admissions committee is using. All areas of your application are going to be equally considered. So we've already touched on the admission average. As you know, that's based on your final 2 years, looking for that B or 70% average. Another important component is your statement of intent. So within the application, you're going to be asked to produce a 500-word statement of intent. This is really how you put a voice to your application and how the committee gets to know you. So maybe talk a little bit about your previous educational history, what your research and intentions are, and what you're hoping to seek out by completing this program. So it's really just putting your application together and providing a voice. Again, these are research-intensive programs, so we would highly recommend to make a note about your research goals in that statement as well. Next would be the writing sample. So this is a highly academic program. We are looking to see that you can write at the academic level. So within the writing sample, the committee is hoping to see that you can present a thesis, you can develop ideas, you can defend the thesis. We are looking for 10 to 20 pages of content in addition to your references and citations. And typically we work with APA format. So we would recommend a writing sample 10 to 20 pages in APA format. It can be work that you've previously submitted, whether published or unpublished, that's completely fine. If you do want to produce something original for the committee, that's acceptable as well. But just making sure that that writing shows that you can produce writing at a graduate level. You're also going to be asked to provide references. So we are looking for 2 academic references. What happens is in the application system, you provide their email address and they will be emailed in electronic form to fill out and send back to the committee. So just be aware that that's all electronic. And with the references, just a thing we'll mention about the application system, once you hit save, they will receive that form within 24 hours. So just be sure that we'll talk a little bit more about the applications process down the road, but just be sure that you have notified your references that you are using them. And the last component the committee is going to consider is your work experience. So we are going to ask you to upload a resume or CV into the application portal. There's no specific template or page limit for this. Most students will will upload something that they already have used before, so that resume or CV, but highlighting any work experience relevant to your preferred field of study or relevant to education is recommended. And yeah, there's a great question. I'm just going to repeat that because I saw it pop up about professional references. So we do recommend academic references given that it's an academic program, but you are certainly welcome to also provide professional references in lieu of academic references. That is acceptable. They will receive the form in the same format, etc., and we will still be looking for 2 in that case. Okay, so the application process itself. So the application is completed fully online. There is a link there that is available to access that application. One thing that's helpful to know is you can go in and out of the application. So after this webinar tonight, if you'd like to go and see what that looks like for yourself, please, we do encourage you to do so. You do not have to complete the application all in one sitting. When you are ready to submit the application, there is a $120 application fee that is going to be non-refundable as part of the process. And I've made a note there for references again to remind you that you can provide your references with the referee form prior to you submitting your application. So as soon as you put their contact information and hit save, they will receive that. So just be aware that is also helpful because the references do need to be in by the same deadline. So if you want to ensure you give them sufficient time to complete the form, you can go ahead and do that while you yourself are still finishing up the application. Next, you're going to be asked to upload your supporting documents. So right within the application, you will be uploading the 4 items you see there. So I'm just going to walk through those. In regards to transcripts, we are looking for a digital copy of your transcript. So it can actually be unofficial, a web academic report or a statement of grades, anything like that. If you can download that from your institution's website or student portal, that is completely sufficient. Should you be offered admission into the program, at that time in your offer letter, we'll include instructions on how to send official copies of your documents, of your transcripts. So again, unofficial PDF versions, that is completely fine. You are uploading them yourself into the application system. I mentioned the statement of intent, the writing sample, resume, all get uploaded in there. Now, one thing I will mention here within the process section is a note about supervisors. So we do get asked a lot with this program, do I have to have confirmation from a supervisor, etc. You will notice in the application portal, they will ask you to list a preferred supervisor. So we do always recommend to reach out to 2 to 3 potential faculty members that you are interested in working with. So the research aligns, etc. We have all of our faculty profiles on the website, so you do have an opportunity to explore that and learn a little more about them. Now, do know that it is not mandatory to have confirmation from your supervisor prior to submitting your application. So please do not feel the need to wait to hear back from a supervisor. We do encourage that you reach out to them to make that connection, make sure, again, it helps you ensure that this is the right fit for you, but do not worry about waiting on your application. Please go ahead and submit that without confirmation because the faculty committee, etc., they can also look through your application and determine proper fit as well. So just a note on supervisors there. You will see that in the application. Okay, and deadline. So the deadline to apply is April 30th. So that is coming up at the end of next month for curriculum studies, applied linguistics, April 30th. We do encourage you to apply once you're ready to do so. We recommend not waiting till the very last day just in case there's some technical glitches or anything there. And again, keep in mind that by April 30th, the application deadline, all components of your application do need to be received. So that does include those reference letters. Make sure that those are submitted by April 30th. You will receive an email once the referee has completed the electronic form and sent that forward. So you will have a way to track that. Okay, and just to review quickly, important information here. Again, those links are all active. You will be receiving the slide deck so you can easily jump to the proper areas on our website. Do make sure you review the admission requirements for the different streams and any exceptions that may pertain to you. The program information, so you have an understanding of what is expected, commitment-wise, etc. Ensure that you have your documentation ready, and please make sure to get that in by April 30th. Okay, so the next step would be receiving your offer. So some of you here tonight may potentially have an offer. If not, that could be coming. So with how the offer works, you will receive, if you're eligible, 2 emails, one from your Graduate Affairs Assistant and one from the School of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, or SGPS as we call it, which is our central office. In the letter, we'll include instructions, as I mentioned, about sending any official documents if necessary, and also instructions on accepting your offer. So you will be accepting your offer through the Student Center. So once you create your application, you will have access to the Student Center, and you will be able to see your status there, see that change, and that is exactly where you will be accepting your offer. There is a deadline deposit, tuition deposit by the deadline that will be posted in your offer letter. So just be aware of that $250 deposit and wait for any information on registration and orientation. So typically, the graduate office will be communicating with you in the summer about starting in the fall, so about any kind of orientations, whether on campus, virtual, etc. That information will all come to you in the fall. Also provided a link there to our program website that includes some further information for next steps. Okay, so now let's talk about funding your degree. So we have a few different things to cover here. First, we'll talk about the program fees. So I've listed out both the domestic and international fees. Now this is per term. As mentioned, there are, 6 terms for the program that you are looking at. So for domestic applicants, you're looking at just over 3,600. For international, just over 11,000 per term. The fees are due 3 times per year, September, January, and May. And these fees are available on our website, so you can access that as well. This is based on previous years. It typically does not change greatly, but just something to be aware of. But any changes would be posted to the website, in addition to any potential ancillary fees, etc., all available on the website there. Okay, now let's talk about funding opportunities. So within the faculty, we do offer entrance scholarships that you would be automatically considered for. So these do not require an external application. Your application as a whole will already be considered for this by the committee. We offer 12 scholarships that are valued at $12,500 spread across the 2 years. So these are our automatic entrance scholarships specifically from the Faculty of Education at Western. Now, I do want to highlight that we have 2 brand new scholarships that are really, really great financial opportunities. So the first is for graduate students who are living with disabilities. This scholarship is going to be awarded to 2 students that are Master of Arts students. It's also available at the PhD level, just as a heads up for future planning. But specifically for the Master of Arts, there are 2 scholarships available. They are $10,000 per year for 2 years, in addition to any faculty-sourced funding. So this is on top of original funding opportunities. Again, we also have this for Indigenous students. So there are 2 spaces as well for that, for Indigenous students at the same value of $10,000 per year for 2 years on top of additional funding. So these are huge financial opportunities. So I highly encourage you, if you are a graduate student living with a disability, or you are an Indigenous student, or you know of someone, please share this with them. These are really, really great opportunities and initiatives from the Faculty of Education. I've also listed here some other areas to consider. So as we mentioned, the entrance scholarships. We do also have the graduate scholarship, the Canada Graduate Scholarship, Ontario Graduate Scholarships. So these are not necessarily Faculty of Education specific, but can be applied towards this. And you can apply for these while you are still an applicant. So you do not need to wait for your offer of admission to do so. So do be sure to take a look at those scholarship opportunities. We also encourage applicants to look outside of the faculty or the Western itself. So we do have students who receive educational leaves from their employers, so looking at employer assistance or support from them. We also, this program is fully eligible for OSAP or bank loans. So if you are an Ontario student with, or sorry, Canadian, I guess, with a RRSP, it is eligible for the lifelong learning plan, as well as industry scholarships. So a great resource is scholarshipscanada.com, where you can create a profile about yourself, your background, your educational goals, and it will match you to scholarships you could be considered for. So it is a really great opportunity to seek out additional resources. Every year there are scholarships that do not go fully used, so we recommend that you do your research, check out these links, and try to get as much financial support as you can through this. Okay, so yeah, another thing I will mention with the entrance scholarships, I just saw a question pop up, so I do want to reiterate this. Those are solely monetary, so the automatic scholarships we were talking about here are applied, like financial amount that is applied directly to your student account. So this does not have to do with a teaching role. This is not a position in that sense, a TA position or anything. If there are research opportunities on campus, those get posted to our traditional human resources website that students are available to support, potentially if your supervisor is doing work, etc. But that is not in connection to our scholarship. So that would be outside of, that would be in the sense of looking for like a paid part-time position on campus or anything like that. Those funding resources exist as well. Okay, and I also want to do a little plug for some upcoming events we are hosting this month. So on our website, the link is there. You can register for a variety of different events. These are hosted by myself, the recruitment team, to look at different ways that we can connect with our students to make sure that they're getting the answers they need prior to having to commit to their program, their application. Some of these are going to be a little bit more MPED focused. So if someone here is interested in the MPED program, definitely check these out. But we're also hosting a session on making your application stand out, so talking about tips and tricks. There will also be March 31st, just a drop-in session. So if you after tonight, you think, oh, I have this burning question I want to talk about, maybe face-to-face, not over email, by all means, just know that these events are there for you throughout the month of March to help you while you're finalizing your application. Okay, and now I'm going to open the floor to questions. I know Jen has already addressed a lot in the chat, but also, Jen, if there's anything that you'd like to add, or maybe an answer, update, anything, a question that someone asked in the chat to share, we will open that up. I also provided the email address is edrecruit@uwo.ca. If you have any questions and you would like to send them over via email, please do. We will make sure to get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, otherwise feel free to put, you don't have the speaker on, so you won't be able to turn your audio on, but you can absolutely put any question you have in the chat there. Okay. And yeah, I just noticed that mentioned the number of students accepted into the program. So approximately 20 students in each of these fields, which is helpful to know.
Yeah, these are some really great questions. Amber, the only one I wasn't able to do was the link to the MPED video. I'm just not sure where to grab that from.
Absolutely.
Oh, Kelly, in terms of choosing whether to do a thesis or project, when do students decide? So yes, you should decide before you apply. The master's research project route or the thesis route. That's not to say you can't change while you're in program. We do allow that. There's not a lot of changing. Usually students are pretty well aware whether they want to write a thesis or do a master's research project. If you're really kind of torn between the two, there's two things you should take into consideration. The master's research project is definitely quicker. I've seen students do that in 4 months in one term. So you could be completing your MA in 16 months instead of the full 2 years. But I've also seen students do thesis pretty quickly. The other thing to consider is, what are you going to do after your master's? If you are really sure you want to go on to do your PhD, either right away or later on in life, it's worth checking at the institutions that you think you might want to do your doctoral degree at to see whether they require a thesis. Some do, some don't. It's not. I can't say unilaterally that you wouldn't be accepted into a program, into a PhD program with an MRP. Lots of universities allow that. Some people feel that you're more strongly considered if you have a thesis. In our particular case, most of the students admitted to the PhD have a thesis, but some MRP students do go through. But if you want to go to University of Toronto or something to do your PhD, check with them, because some schools are very strict about that requirement. Okay.
Perfect. A question about the supervisor. Yeah, so I can mention what I discussed before a little bit. For the supervisor, we do recommend that you reach out to 2 to 3 potential faculty members that you would be interested in working with. And the reason we say 2 to 3 is there could be some that are not taking on students, some that are on sabbatical for the following year, etc. So it just betters your chances of hearing back. Now, that being said, they do not need to be confirmed for you to apply or for you to be considered for admission. So it's a recommendation. It is not required. You absolutely do not need to wait to hear back from a supervisor prior to admitting or submitting your application. We actually encourage you to go ahead and submit your application prior to hearing from that. Would you add anything to that, Jen? Or?
No, absolutely. I mean, check out those faculty profiles, and yeah, don't hold off waiting for an answer. And if you want to list more than 2, that's fine. I would just say, take a note when you are looking at our faculty profiles that read their research interests. We do find sometimes applicants apply and they've asked for a supervisor that does not work within these particular field areas, like they don't work in curriculum studies and they don't work in applied linguistics. So that's just gonna confuse the committee if you pick someone who works in our critical policy area or our applied psychology area. We're a very large faculty. We have a lot of programs, a lot of fields. So just make sure you're putting down supervisors that that are researching something that you think you might want to look into researching, because that's going to make you really competitive, because that's how our decisions a lot of the times are made. If you want to come in and research something that none of our faculty members have any expertise in it, then your chances of getting an offer of admission decrease because there's no one to supervise that research interest. So take the time and look at their profiles, and see what would be a good match for you.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm losing track of the questions.
I see someone mentioned that they had emailed a couple professors and hadn't heard back that they don't have capacity. So it does happen, and that's why we then reach out to a few. Don't be discouraged by that. That does happen, but you can always reach out to.
It's not to say, so let's say you're applying to the applied linguistics field and you really had your heart set on working with Dr. Webb. Dr. Webb has a lot of students right now. I'm not saying it's at capacity. I don't know if he is or not. But it's still okay to put your application in and put, Dr. Webb as well as Dr. Boers, or any of our other applied linguistics, Dr. Fayez. You can put more than one person, and that way, even if the committee's looking at it and Dr. Webb can't take you, one of his colleagues might be very interested in working with you. So don't let that discourage you. Faculty supervision levels fluctuate from year to year. Sometimes they have a lot of students, sometimes they don't. And of course, you would have no way of knowing that. So just put down the options that you think work for you, and just make sure you put more than one person, and you should be fine.
Perfect. Jen, there's a question I might ask you, as Michelle's asked what the average completion date is for students. So, sometimes programs say 2 years, but it takes closer to 4, etc. Would you know that?
Oh, well, it's definitely around the 2-year mark. Most students would, if you're talking about a thesis route, most would complete in 2 years, or maybe 2 years and one more term. It really is up to you. After you finish those first 2 terms of courses, and then you do your proposal in your third term, usually a student can get their master's thesis done easily within 3 terms, as long as you're making progression, and depends on ethics and other things like that. But 2 years would definitely be the most common timeline we see for students in a master's program.
Perfect. Perfect, great. And then the acceptance rate for applied linguistics. So, we don't really publish that. Like, we don't really. The applicant pools change year to year, and what makes an applicant competitive one year can be very different. So we mentioned what the minimum requirements are: the 70% in your last 2 years, preferably a 4-year degree, etc. Really, beyond that, you're looked at as a whole, right? They're going to be looking at your professional experience, your statement of intent, references, etc. So it's really hard to kind of track an acceptance rate. I would say if you meet the minimum requirements, rest assured you will be reviewed by the committee, and I don't know, would you add anything?
No, I think that's a good answer. I was just going to move on to the question about the funding package. So I think I've answered it a little bit here and there in the chat, but I'll just give you a really fulsome overview. So if you're going to come into our program into either of these 2 fields, there are 12 entrance scholarships that Amber spoke about. So 12 out of the 20 students will receive those. There are other things you can do to receive funding. We really, really strongly encourage all incoming applicants to apply to OGS. Maybe even CIHR if it suits your research interests. There's faculty-based awards. We have about 15 faculty-based awards that happen all throughout the year, and you get emails from my office saying that this award is open, and maybe you have to write like a 1-page PDF to be considered for the award. So we have about 15 of those that range anywhere from $500 to $3,000. There's other opportunities for funding as far as is working for your supervisor on the research grant. Quite a few of our master's students get hired to work on grant projects, keeping in mind that the general rule in the Faculty of Education is that a full-time research-intensive student would not undertake more than 20 hours of work in any given week, because we don't want it to affect your progression in the program. And then, of course, as Amber mentioned, there's also an online resource at Western where all TA postings are posted, so you can apply to TA in other faculties. You can't really TA in education until you're in a PhD, but there's lots of, like, the Faculty of Science at Western hires hundreds of TAs every year. So there's postings like that that you can apply to, and then there's always opportunities within education itself, and certainly with your supervisor in most cases.
Perfect, thank you. So there was a question there about the tuition fee. So we did cover that in the presentation. So if you missed that first part, you'll get the slide deck, don't worry. But I've also provided here a link to the Office of the Registrar website. But for international students, you're looking at just over 11,000 per term. And there are 6 terms for the master's program. So you're just looking over 66,000. But I've provided a link there where you can see the information, and that does not include funding. That's just, you know, full tuition amount if there was no funding or anything. There was a question in there about, Kelly asked, what are some examples of projects that students can do for the master's research project? Would you know about that, Jen?
Well, I'm assuming, she's talking about the master's research project. It's a really, really wide range. I mean, you would decide that with your supervisor. I don't want to get into academic content too much, but you would decide that with your supervisor, and it would be based on your research interests. So a master's research project is still a substantial document. It's certainly a lot of work, and it's not necessarily a lot less work than the thesis. It's just a different focus. So whatever you were interested in researching, providing, you know, the input from your supervisor, they would probably give you some really great ideas, or work with you if you felt strongly that you already have an idea that you want to research. But that would really be a conversation for you and your supervisor.
Perfect. So there is a question there about counseling psychology. So I'm just going to provide a link. We do have of our past events. So we did host a webinar in the fall that included our other 3 areas of study for the Master of Arts that we didn't get into tonight. Keep in mind that was for students beginning this September. So if you're thinking of applying for September 2022, we will host new sessions in the fall that will be more up to date in case there's any changes, etc. But you asked about working independently. So the Master of Arts in Counseling Psychology, it is a fully accredited program. Just so you're aware, but the applications are now closed. They closed in mid-January, and again, we'll host some more events in the fall for the next intake in September 2022. But I did provide a link there for the past events. If you're looking for more content about that stream in particular, we did cover that before.
So we're just looking at Michael's question. Michael, I just want to be really clear. Getting a master's degree in education does not qualify you to teach in the K-12 school system. To teach in the K-12 school system in Ontario, at least, that would be a Bachelor of Education. That would be Teachers College. So I'm not sure if that maybe negates your question, but unless you have a Bachelor of Education from an accredited university, you can't teach in the K-12 system. So often our students in our master's program have a B.Ed, not always, lots of them don't. And then, you know, there's lots of different industries in which you can have a teaching role, and organizations that you can function in within a teaching capacity. But just to be really clear, you would not be teaching in a K-12 system with just a master's alone.
Perfect.
Kelly, this is the question. Do the projects have to be written in an essay form, or they? Oh, no, yeah, they are. So in our research intensive program, we're still pretty old school. So if you go to our current student website, you can actually take a look at our master's research project guide, and it's a fulsome overview of everything that goes into a research project. But it's definitely an academic piece. It's definitely scholarly writing. So it is a written, articulated piece of work. It could not be in any other format.
Yeah, what I would mention too, Kelly, is if you're looking for something a little bit maybe more professionally focused in that sense, the MPEB would be another option to look at. So I say that because sometimes those in the MPed you do a capstone project at the end in lieu of a thesis, and those can traditionally be a little bit more creative. It's still a graduate program, so you still have the academic component, but if you're looking for something a little bit more tangible, professionally focused, etc., that may be an option to look through the MPed. And if you have any questions about that one, just email me and we can certainly talk more about that program. There was a question about hearing back, so I did forget to talk about that, so I'm happy to do that. So once you have applied and submitted all of your documents, including reference letters, so everything has been received by the committee, what happens is it actually goes to the Central Admissions Office, which is the School of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, or SGPS. They will do the preliminary evaluation, so they will take a look at your GPA, they'll calculate your average, the transcripts, collect everything, etc. Then it goes to the admissions committee. Once it's in the hands of the admissions committee, typically you can hear back within approximately 6 to 8 weeks, but that's just a general guideline. So, we're not entirely glued to that or anything by any means, but 6 to 8 weeks typically is when you can expect to hear back. And
I'm just going to...
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to add, you have a deadline in the offer letter of when you needed to respond back. That would be right there in your offer letter for you.
Yeah, and we give you a few weeks. I mean, it's never less than 2 weeks. It's usually got 3 or 4 weeks for you to respond. But I just want to mention, because this is a research-intensive program, we really do aim for that 6 to 8 weeks. But if for some reason our committee has reviewed you and they're either, maybe they're waiting on a particular faculty member to weigh in. Just because you don't hear in 6 to 8 weeks does not necessarily mean bad news. Sometimes they do put applicants on hold while they, have deeper discussions. So it's not the first time. We don't just send it to the committee once. Sometimes we send it to the committee more than once. So it might be longer than 8 weeks, depending on what factors are helping them make their decisions. But we do ask them to be as timely as possible so that we can let you know.
And the two streams that are available there, is it's Applied Linguistics and Curriculum Studies. So those are the two that are available. Right
now. I wondered if Miriam was asking about the MRP and the thesis route. I wonder if that was the slide.
Oh, maybe the timeline.
Yeah.
We'll put it back there.
And yes, entrance scholarships are absolutely open to international applicants. And keep in mind, there's the odd tri-council agency competition, like, for example, our CGSM that Amber mentioned, the Canadian Graduate Scholarship, that has an international division, so you can apply as an international student for that funding as well.
Okay, perfect. That's what you're looking for. Thanks, Miriam. Okay, so a dual degree between Western and the college. Do the college courses count towards the required 20 courses to apply?
Yeah, that would be taken into consideration. I'm assuming you've graduated, Kelly, with a university degree. You probably did your first 2 years of the college. No, yeah, you'd be fine. Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, so number of students that are accepted, we said roughly it's about 20 students per stream. So for each of the 2 streams we're talking about tonight, roughly around 20 students would get accepted.
Oh, actually, Amber, I'm just going to correct you. Is 20 combined
total?
To the
okay,
2
fields?
Yeah, we have less applied linguistics students than we do curriculum students. So the way this works is that our masters, we have 3 different research areas, or we call them academic research clusters in the faculty. So that's groups of professors that work in like-minded areas. So this particular ARC, or academic research cluster, is curriculum studies and studies in applied linguistics. So what they do is they have a bit of a hybrid program. So if you are in curriculum studies, you will have classes with students that are in applied linguistics. Your core courses would be similar, but then there are also courses that are specifically offered to applied linguistics students, okay? So it is 20 between the 2 different fields, but it's within one ARC. It gets confusing because there are other MA degrees that we offer, like one of the people was asking earlier, counseling psychology, but the ones we're speaking about here tonight, it's kind of a bit of a hybrid program.
Perfect. Thank you. That helps me too. Okay, so for the timeline here, there was just a question to go over the timeline again. So the first two lines you see there, that is the thesis route. So you would have 3 courses in the fall and 3 courses in the winter. Those are 12-week courses. You would make your proposal at the end of your first year, and your second year would be dedicated towards your thesis. It's still 3 terms, like timeline-wise, but that is focused on your thesis. For the other route, the master's research project, you'll see underneath, it's a little bit different because in the summer you do have 2 courses. So the thesis is essentially 6 courses plus the thesis. The project route is going to be 8 courses plus the master's research project at the end, and that could be anywhere from 1 to 3 terms. So it could take the full second year or just a portion of it, so 12 to 24 weeks. Let me know if
that's really set by the student. It's really how fast you want to go through and complete that.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, we have a specific question on educational background.
Oh, this is for the MPED and ABA, so it's not for this area. So what I will say about the MPED and ABA is that the applications have closed. So those did close February 1st for a September 2021 start. If you're looking for September 2022, that will open in October of this year. In regards to the background, for that program, follows a similar structure. So the 4-year degree, the last 2 years is what they're focusing on. And know that for ABA, you do have to have a background in psychology. So they are looking for a background in psychology, not a specific number of courses or anything. So that would be something you may want to consider when you're thinking about applying, Michelle, or if that's something you want to pick up prior to applying. It's going to follow a similar route in the sense that you are submitting references, you're submitting a resume. So yes, you know, skills in your experience are going to be considered, but they're also still looking for that psych background. So just be aware that that application is not going to open again until the fall, and we will definitely run some more events about that this fall to give you more information about it. Okay, and deadlines, if you're thinking about this program, Kelly, or these 2 streams we're talking about tonight, the Master of Arts in Education Studies, the deadline to apply for these 2 streams is April 30th. If you're looking for the MPED, you're going to be, those deadlines are a little bit later, they are June 30th. I'll provide a link so that you can access that, but the ones we're talking about tonight is April 30th. There we go. I just provided a link there for the deadlines for all of our different programs too, if someone is interested in something else.
And just remember that that deadline is inclusive of all your documents. So that means your referees, your references have to be in, anything supplemental. So it's more than just clicking submit. So give yourself a little time with that deadline. If you're not submitting right away, to give your referees time to get those documents in. Until everything's in, we can't release your application to the committee, and you don't want that to be sitting there for weeks and weeks while we wait on something. Oh, we might have answered all of the questions.
Right. Yeah, if anyone has any other questions, please, by all means, feel free to put those in the chat now. I'm just moving ahead in our slideshow here to bring up the email address again. So if you have any questions, you can email edrecruit@uwo.ca, and we will be happy to help with those. We also have online a virtual booking system. So if you do want to meet one-on-one, maybe you realize you're more interested in a different stream or different program or have some questions, want to go into detail, please know that you can book online. It'll pop up a few different times on the website, a one-on-one appointment that will be with me over Zoom, and I'm happy to chat more about all of the different graduate programs that we offer here at the Faculty of Education. So please reach out via email, look at those sessions in March if you want to attend a drop-in session, or book a one-on-one appointment where I'm here to help you with any questions you may have. Otherwise, I think that does wrap up the session tonight. We'll stick around for a few more minutes if there are any other questions, but thank you so much for coming to hear about our programs, and I hope that we see your application by April 30th. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. Have a lovely